She wore the badge with pride, believing in justice even when the world around her was drenched in prejudice. But one night, justice turned its back on her. The very people sworn to protect became her executioners, leaving behind more than just a broken family. They left behind a storm. Her husband, shattered but unyielding, now walks a path few dare to tread. How far would you go for the one you love, when the system that killed them still walks free? Her name was Angela Carter. To her neighbors, she was more than just a police officer. She was a protector, a role model, a woman who carried both strength and grace. She believed in the oath she had taken that a badge should mean safety, not fear. In her community, she was known for showing kindness where others showed suspicion, for seeing humanity where others only saw skin. At home, Angela's life was grounded by love. Her husband, Marcus, admired her not only for her courage but for her heart. Together, they dreamed of raising a family, building a life untouched by the ugliness she faced on the streets. For a time, their days felt almost ordinary. Morning coffee, late-night talks, laughter spilling through their small home. But beneath the surface, the tension never truly disappeared. Angela had confided in Marcus that not everyone in her department shared her vision of justice. Whispers of hostility, stares that lingered too long, and subtle reminders that her skin made her an outsider even in uniform. She brushed it off, telling herself that her work mattered more than their hate. What she didn't know was that the same men she wore the badge beside would soon betray her in the most unthinkable way. And that betrayal would ignite a storm her husband could never walk away from. Angela had always known that wearing the badge as a black woman came with invisible weight. In roll calls, her voice was often drowned out. In patrol cars, she was left out of conversations that mattered. But she pressed forward, believing that her example could change minds, that her service would prove her worth. Then came the calls she couldn't ignore. Reports of accidents that didn't feel accidental, stops that targeted men who looked like her brother, her father, her husband. Each time she raised her voice, the silence around her grew colder. The officers who laughed with her at barbecues no longer made eye contact. Files she submitted disappeared. The walls were closing in, but Angela stood taller, unaware of how deep the resentment ran. One evening, Marcus noticed the difference. Angela came home quieter, her uniform wrinkled, her eyes holding something she wouldn't say aloud. She brushed it off with a tired smile, but the weight in her silence was heavier than any words. Marcus tried to press, but she only whispered, "I'm fine, just tired." He knew better. The night it happened, the city was unusually still. Angela had been called out for what was supposed to be a routine patrol. No backup, no partner, just her, alone. Hours later, the knock came at Marcus's door. Cold, clinical voices delivered the news. She didn't make it. No explanation, no details, just the brutal finality of death. But Marcus couldn't accept the official story. The report claimed she died during a traffic stop gone wrong. Yet her body bore bruises that told a different story, hands that weren't strangers, wounds that didn't come from chance. And in his gut, Marcus knew this was no random tragedy. It was execution, hidden behind a uniform. He asked questions, but the department slammed every door in his face. Records were sealed. Witnesses were silenced. Every path to justice was blocked. It wasn't just that Angela had been killed. It was that her killers still wore the same badge, walking freely, laughing in the same bars, untouched by the system she had once believed in. Marcus's grief turned sharp, his nights restless. He replayed her last moments in his mind, rage burning hotter with every memory of her smile. The more the truth was buried, the clearer it became. The law was not going to help him. Justice would not arrive through courtrooms or headlines. And so, Marcus made a choice. He looked at the photographs of the men he believed were responsible, their faces burned into his mind. If the system was built to protect them, then he would become the storm that tore it apart. What started as grief was about to become vengeance. And for the men who thought they were untouchable, their time was running out. Marcus's world narrowed to a single purpose. Each night he hunted, studying their routines, the racist officers who had stolen Angela's life. The first one never saw him coming. A shadow in the dark, a reckoning delivered with the same fear they had once inflicted on others. When news of the death broke, whispers ran through the department. But Marcus didn't stop. One by one, the names on his list grew smaller. With each act, the weight on his chest lifted, but his soul darkened. He wasn't the same man anymore. Sleep vanished. Meals went untouched. Friends stopped calling. He had become consumed, defined by vengeance. Then came the night that tested him most. The last officer, the one Marcus knew had pulled the trigger on Angela, wasn't hiding. He was celebrating, surrounded by others in blue, laughing as if her death had been a victory. Marcus's hands trembled as he watched from the shadows. Rage clawed at him, demanding action. He followed the man into a parking lot, the night heavy with silence, their eyes locked for the first time, predator and prey. But in that moment, Marcus wasn't sure who was who anymore. The officer smirked, as if daring him, as if saying without words, "You'll never win." Marcus raised his hand, every nerve in his body screaming for release. His heart pounded like thunder, the world slowing to the beat of his grief and fury. This was the moment. No courtrooms, no headlines, just justice carved from pain. But what Marcus chose in that instant would decide not only his fate, but whether Angela's death would be remembered as the spark of something greater or just another tragedy swallowed by silence. And then he acted. When the dust settled, Marcus stood alone, haunted by what he had done, but unable to feel regret. Each act of vengeance had been born from love, from the unbearable truth that the system built to protect had instead destroyed. Yet as he looked at Angela's photograph one last time, he realized that no amount of blood could bring her back. Justice, in its purest form, had already been stolen from them. News outlets spoke of a vigilante targeting officers. The department denied wrongdoing, painting Marcus as nothing more than a criminal. But in the neighborhoods Angela had once protected, whispers told a different story. To them, Marcus wasn't a villain. He was a man who dared to do what the system refused, demand accountability even at the cost of his soul. Angela's death and Marcus's path of vengeance became a symbol of something larger, the price of silence, the weight of unchecked racism, the fractures in a justice system built on unequal ground. His story was not isolated. It was part of a chain stretching back generations, one tragedy after another, each sparking the same question. How many more? As viewers, we're left with the same choice Marcus faced. Turn away, accept the silence, or confront the reality staring us in the face. Because his story is more than one man's grief. It's a mirror reflecting a world where justice is still unevenly weighed, where lives are stolen, and where anger becomes the only voice left when truth is buried. So ask yourself, if justice fails again tomorrow, who will rise? Who will break the silence? And how much longer can we wait before another Angela, another Marcus, becomes part of the same endless cycle?